Hi everyone, this is Dr. Anna, and I'm here to continue with the evolution module. We are at segment 3 now. So let's start. This was the last thing we talked about, the embryonic history, which was number 4, proof of evolution. And now we're moving on to number 5. Number 5 is the biogeography. Biogeography is about how animals distributed on the world, and there are some very interesting things. And I have a movie I will show you, which has a lot more. But probably for me, the most obvious was when I realized that in Australia, and I had the luck to go there, so I saw myself the kangaroos, the emu, the koala bear. I saw these guys, and then I realized that they are all marsupials. In Europe, we don't really have, even in America, we don't have many marsupials. So the thing is that on many continents, also on many continents, unrelated animals evolved to occupy very similar ecologic niches. And what is really interesting is that they have very similar physical features. Like I have this picture here, which shows you the marsupial mammals and the placental mammals on the right. So the marsupial mammals, as you can see, so this left side is the marsupial mammals, which mostly occur in Australia. And this one is the placental mammals, which is in America and Europe. And look at them, they are looking extremely similar. The wombat and the woodchuck occupy very similar niches, so therefore they look alike. Look at the sugar glider versus the flying squirrel, the mole and the marsupial mole. We have the Tanzanian devil, which is very similar to the wolverine, and the kangaroo, and there is an animal in Patagonia which looks just like that. So the same ecologic niches need very similar features. So even though these animals evolutionary are not exactly at the same level, they look alike.
Biogeographical evidence for evolution is supported by the geological record of plate tectonics. Radiometric dating and magnetic striping in oceanic crust confirm that 200 million years ago, Earth's continents were joined in Pangaea. The subsequent continental drift, documented through multiple geological indicators, including matching rock formations and glacial deposits across continents, created geographical isolation of species populations. The distribution of rhytite birds provides direct evidence for evolution through continental drift. Fossil records show that ancestral rhytites existed before the breakup of Gondwana. DNA analysis confirms that ostriches, emus, rheas, and extinct moas share a common ancestor. Their current distribution correlates precisely with continental fragments. Ostriches in Africa, emus in Australia, rheas in South America, and moa fossils in New Zealand. Molecular clock analyses date their divergence to the same time periods as the separation of these land masses. The separation of South America from Africa, dated to 130 million years ago through seafloor magnetic anomalies, is evidenced in freshwater fish distributions. Cichlid fish fossils are found in both continents, and genetic studies confirm their common ancestry. These species could not have dispersed across the Atlantic Ocean due to their physiological inability to survive in salt water, as demonstrated by experimental studies. Madagascar's isolation is dated to 160 million years ago through geological evidence. The island's lemur species show an evolutionary radiation from a single ancestral population, confirmed through genetic analysis. Lemur fossils are found only in Madagascar, with the earliest dating to 54 million years ago. DNA studies indicate all living lemur species descended from a single ancestral population that reached Madagascar approximately 65 million years ago. The Wallace Line, identified through species distribution data, corresponds to deep oceanic trenches between the Sunda and Sahul continental shelves. Species surveys document distinct faunal assemblages. Placental mammals dominate west of the line, while marsupials dominate to the east. Fossil evidence shows these distinct evolutionary histories developed in isolation over millions of years. The Galapagos Islands formed through volcanic activity 3 to 4 million years ago, as confirmed by radiometric dating, host 13 species of finches. DNA analysis proves their descent from a single ancestral species from mainland South America. Detailed morphological measurements document specific beak adaptations. South America's period of isolation, confirmed through geological evidence spanning 65 million years, resulted in unique evolutionary lineages. Fossil records document the evolution of endemic mammals, Toxodon, Macrauchenia, and marsupials like Thylacosmilus. These fossils show gradual morphological changes through clearly dated geological strata. Antarctic fossils provide evidence of evolutionary responses to environmental change. Preserved specimens include Glossopteris flora and Lystrosaurus fossils, matching those found in other southern continents. These fossils, dated through radiometric methods, demonstrate species distribution before continental drift and subsequent evolutionary adaptations to cooling climates. The distribution of species and their genetic relationships consistently match the sequence and timing of continental movements, providing empirical evidence for evolution through geographical isolation and subsequent adaptation.
Number 6 is the fossil record. Probably have already seen it that the layers of rocks sometimes contain fossils, and the new layers will cover the old ones. So you are going to end up with a whole bunch of rock layers where, for example, this is the Grand Canyon. So down here, you find the oldest fossils, and as you go up, they're going to be younger and younger. And I have gone actually to Havasu Falls. That's a good place to go to. It's in the Grand Canyon, but in the west part of the Grand Canyon, and it's on the Havasupai Indians area. And you can go down there and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's really a good place to go to. So it's Havasu Falls, it's H. And there I saw the different layers with fossils in them. And because it's a lot of limestone, the water down there and the falls are beautiful Caribbean blue. So it's really an interesting place to visit. So the new layers will cover the older fossil containing layers, and therefore it creates a record over time. A record of the rocks and then also the fossils in them. For example, I went to Blue Mountain, Canada this summer, and we went to the beach, which is at Lake Huron, and on the beach you could see beautiful trilobite fossils such as these guys, and then see the sunset. And the fossils were all around you, which is amazing place. So you will see the layers of different organisms which used to live on Earth in a long period of time. At least we have just in the Grand Canyon 200 million years of fossil record, basically. Heard that the Grand Canyon was made in 1 million years. You know, the cutting down of the river valley was 1 million, but the layers have settled down, and it represents at least 250 million years of the geologic time with different age fossils in them. So it's a really amazing thing to be able to be exposed to. Make sure that you go with somebody who understands the fossils. And fossil record, of course, documents the life and its evolution through time. So this here is just a picture showing the oldest fossils and then goes up all the way to humans. So you can see that humans really is just the last couple of million years of our fossil history. This is just a couple of fossils. So the Earth is old, life is old, life on Earth has changed through time, and now I have a movie which is the evidence for evolution using C vitamin. So let's play it.
The following video demonstrates that the theory of evolution is useful for making sense out of biological observations. According to an article published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 1991, vitamin C is unique, as its essentiality as a nutrient is restricted to only a limited number of exceptional species among phylogenetically higher animals. In other words, nearly all higher animals can synthesize vitamin C. Vitamin C is a chemical compound required for a range of essential metabolic reactions in both plants and animals. Most higher animals, like this dog, are able to internally synthesize their own vitamin C. Vitamin C is an essential dietary nutrient for some members of the animal kingdom, most notably humans. Because our bodies lack the ability to synthesize vitamin C, we must obtain this essential nutrient from the food that we consume. Indeed, people who consume no vitamin C will become sick with the disease called scurvy after just a few weeks. Their small blood vessels will rupture, their bones will be weakened, and their joints will swell. Without vitamin C, death will likely occur within a few months. In human history, scurvy has been most common among sailors who traveled long distances without access to a balanced diet including fruits and vegetables. In 1747, a Scottish physician named James Lind discovered that sailors suffering from scurvy were cured by eating citrus fruit. Lind and his contemporaries did not know that it was the vitamin C in the fruit that was actually responsible for the cure. What follows is a brief history of scientific discoveries concerning scurvy and vitamin C. In 1907, researchers working with guinea pigs were surprised to find that they too were susceptible to scurvy. In 1913, researchers found that they could experimentally induce scurvy in rhesus monkeys. Later research has shown that all of the higher primates, including tarsiers, monkeys, gibbons, orangutans, gorillas, and chimpanzees, are susceptible to scurvy. In 1933, researchers reported the discovery of the chemical structure of vitamin C and identified it as the nutrient that prevents the development of scurvy. The following year, in 1934, researchers succeeded in artificially synthesizing vitamin C, allowing for the mass production of vitamin C supplements that could prevent the development of scurvy. In 1957, researchers discovered that susceptibility to scurvy is due to the inability to produce the enzyme L-gulonolactone oxidase, or GULO. GULO is the last of a series of 4 enzymes that function to convert glucose into vitamin C. Thus, susceptibility to scurvy was determined to be an inborn error of metabolism. In a sense, this means that all animals susceptible to scurvy suffer from a genetic disorder that prevents their bodies from making vitamin C. At this point, researchers were able to use evolutionary theory to make some testable predictions. If the ancestors of humans, the other higher primates, and guinea pigs originally had the ability to synthesize vitamin C, then each of these species should still carry evidence of this lost ability in their genetic material. In addition, researchers predicted that humans and the other higher primates would likely have the same cause for this lost ability, since the scientific evidence suggests that they have all descended from a relatively recent common ancestor. In other words, they predicted that it wasn't a mere coincidence. Descent from a common ancestor was the explanation for why humans and the other primates are all unable to synthesize vitamin C. Finally, researchers predicted that guinea pigs, a species that was known to be only distantly related to primates, would most likely show evidence of a different cause for this lost ability. Eventually, researchers confirmed each of these predictions by finding GULO-related DNA sequences in the genomes of humans, other higher primates, and guinea pigs. Just as predicted, the sequences exist as broken genes, meaning that they are present but non-functional. Here, you can see a portion of the human, chimpanzee, orangutan, macaque, and guinea pig sequences compared to the functional GULO sequence found in a cow. This evidence suggests that a frameshift mutation is what originally rendered the GULO gene non-functional in the ancestor of the higher primates by creating a premature stop codon. Just as expected, this particular mutation is not found in the same location of the guinea pig sequence. Instead, the evidence suggests that a point mutation in a different part of the guinea pig sequence may have been what broke the GULO gene in the ancestor of modern guinea pigs, again by creating a premature stop codon. These completely separate mutations both had the same result. They deactivated the GULO enzyme and rendered the bearers of the mutation, and all of their descendants, unable to produce their own vitamin C. For the animals that originally inherited these mutations, their natural diet probably provided all of the vitamin C they needed. This explains how such a seemingly harmful mutation could become so prevalent that it is now found in all members of these populations. A closer analysis of the DNA sequences confirms another prediction of evolutionary theory. In comparison to humans, the chimpanzee sequence was the most similar, followed by the orangutan sequence, followed by the macaque sequence, followed by the guinea pig and cow sequences. Furthermore, ever since the original mutations broke the genes, the altered genetic material has accumulated mutations at exactly the rate that is predicted by evolutionary theory. So, there you have it. A close examination of the evidence leads to a powerful explanation of a large set of biological observations. These observations only make sense using the real science of evolution. I'm Jeremy Moan.
There is another video I would like you to watch, and I'm sorry for all the videos in this segment, but think it's kind of important. This is a really good one as well.
The theory of biological evolution makes two very bold claims about living creatures. First, all living things on Earth are related. They evolved from a common ancestor. Second, the evolution of living things is powered by natural processes, things which can be studied and understood. But is there really any evidence that these two claims are true? Yes. There are so many observable facts from so many different fields of study that the only way we can even begin to talk about them is to group them into categories or lines of evidence. To keep things simple, here we'll focus on evolution's first claim that all living things on Earth are related. We cannot tackle the entire tree of life at once. After all, there's an estimated 8.7 million species alive today. So instead, we'll focus most of our attention on one fairly small but fascinating branch of the evolutionary tree, cetaceans. This branch includes whales, dolphins, and porpoises. Biologists tell us that all these creatures are closely related, and that the entire group evolved from an ancient four-legged land mammal. Instead of taking their word for it, let's look at the facts. We'll start by looking at a few from the field of comparative anatomy, the study of differences and similarities between living things. Whales live in water, and from a distance, they sort of look like giant fish. A close inspection of their anatomy, however, tells us a very different story. Whales, just like land mammals but unlike fish, have placentas and give live birth. They feed milk to their young. They are warm-blooded, which is extremely rare for a fish. And whales do not have gills. Instead, just like us, they breathe air with two fully developed lungs. Whales don't seem to have noses like mammals do. Instead, they breathe through blowholes coming out the tops of their heads. Some whales have two blowholes which almost look like nostrils, but dolphins and porpoises only have one. Surprisingly, if you look at their skulls, you find that the blowhole splits into two nasal passages inside the head. Could it be that the blowhole is actually a highly modified mammal nose? It looks that way, but we'll need more evidence to be sure. Many whales have hair, just like land mammals. In this photograph, you can actually see the whiskers of this baby gray whale as he rests his chin on mama's back. Strangely, whales have arm, wrist, hand, and finger bones inside their front flippers. Here's a photo of these bones, the same bones that bats, hippos, and people have in their front appendages. One bone, two bones, wrist, hand, and finger bones. Modern whales do not have back legs, but they do have a strange pair of bones where the hind legs should be. Here's a picture of these bones from a bowhead whale. They almost look like shriveled hip, thigh, and shin bones. This one even has a ball and socket joint between the hip and thigh bone, just like the ball and socket joint in your own hip. Is this resemblance a mere coincidence, or are these real leg bones? Perhaps leftovers from the whale's evolutionary history. Before we draw any bold conclusions, let's see if a completely separate line of evidence will confirm our suspicions. Embryology is the study of how creatures develop before being born or hatching from an egg. Here we see a dolphin and a human embryo side by side at similar stages of development. Notice that they both have what look like arm buds and leg buds. In humans, the leg buds grow to become legs. In whales, they grow for a while but then stop, effectively fading away as the rest of the whale continues to grow. These are all photographs of a common dolphin at different stages of growth. Notice that early on, we see two nostril grooves on the front of the face, just like you'd expect in a puppy or a human. As the dolphin continues to grow, the nostrils migrate to the top of the head and fuse together, becoming the dolphin's blowhole. So far, we have multiple facts from two independent lines of study, comparative anatomy and embryology, that are both telling us the same story. The ancestors of whales were once four-legged land creatures. Will the fossil record act as a third witness, confirming this idea? These are two species of extinct basilosaurid whales. These animals are known for multiple well-preserved skeletons, and they appear to have lived side by side roughly 34 to 40 million years ago. In this photograph, we're looking down at the top of a basilosaurid skull. This is not a model or a cast. These are the actual bones which were pulled from the ground. Notice that the nasal opening is not on the top of the head like those of modern whales, and not at the end of the snout like those of land mammals. Instead, it's right in the middle. This is an intermediate species, exactly what evolution tells us we should find. At the back end of a basilosaurid's body, there are small, yet fully developed hips, legs, ankle, feet, and toe bones. These legs are far too small for walking on land, but they may have been useful while mating, or for scratching away parasites and itchy skin. Evolutionary theory tells us that the further we go back in time, the harder it should be to distinguish whales from normal land mammals. Meet Maiacetus. The hip bones of Maiacetus seem sturdy enough to walk on land, but this animal is considered to be a whale for many reasons. Their skeletons have all been found among fossils of sea creatures, which tells us they lived in the ocean. Their short legs, combined with long, flat fingers and toes, suggest they were strong swimmers with webbed hands and feet. Here we see the bottom side of a Maiacetus jaw and skull. Her teeth match those of the basilosaurid whales we saw earlier, and the unique structures of her middle ear bones match those of basilosaurid whales and modern whales. Maiacetus appears to be a walking whale. Scientists have found the fossils of many ancient whale-like mammals and continue to find more. Together, these fossils blur the line between four-legged land mammals and fully aquatic modern whales, solidifying the idea that whales indeed evolved from land creatures. Now let's look at a fourth line of evidence, DNA. DNA molecules contain chemical codes which act like recipes for living things. Without ever looking at bones, embryos, or anatomy, researchers can compare the DNA code of different living creatures to find out who is most closely related to who. Whale DNA has been compared to all kinds of other animals, fish, sea lions, you name it, and so far, the closest genetic match is to the pudgy, water-loving hippopotamus. This does not mean that whales evolved from hippos, but if this genetic finding is correct, whales and hippos both evolved from a common ancestor that lived roughly 54 million years ago. At first, the link between whales and hippos surprised researchers because whales are mainly carnivores. They eat things like fish and small crustaceans. Hippos, on the other hand, are mostly vegetarian. A closer look, however, reveals that hippos and whales actually share many strange features, some of which may have come from their common ancestor. Ancient walking whales have specially shaped ankle bones found only in hippos and the close relatives of hippos. Just like whales, hippos are known to give birth and even nurse their young underwater. They both have multi-chambered stomachs, which is common for herbivores but is almost unheard of for meat-eating mammals. They are both missing a coat of fur, and here's a fun fact. Whales and hippos are among the only mammals on Earth that have internal testicles. So there you have it. 4 independent lines of evidence all tell us the exact same story. Whales evolved from 4-legged land mammals. But the history of whales is not the only evolutionary history that we've been able to work out. We know from fossils, DNA, embryology, and many other lines of evidence that bird wings are actually modified arms and claws. Birds evolved from dinosaur-like ancestors. We can also clearly see that bat wings evolved from 5-fingered hands, very similar to those of monkeys and shrews. We've found that humans share a fairly recent common ancestor with chimpanzees, that mammals evolved from reptile-like creatures, those reptile-like creatures evolved from amphibian-like creatures, those amphibian-like creatures evolved from fish-like creatures, and fish, if you go back far enough, share a common ancestor with segmented worms. So to sum things up, thousands of observable facts from completely independent fields of study have come together to tell us the exact same story. All living things on Earth are related. I'm John Perry, and that's a basic overview of the evidence for evolution, stated clearly.
After this movie, I think it's time for us to finish up with the evidence of evolution. And now we're going to go into the basis of evolution, but it's going to happen in the next segment. So this is the end of the segment 3, and I will continue in segment 4, and I will guys see you there. Bye.